Hello and welcome back to Custom Gamer. My name is Daz and this is the show where we talk about level design while playing cool maps. This is part 2 of Exit by Fredrik Nordstrom. If you missed part 1, there's an annotation on the screen which you can click to go back there and get caught up. So we've identified a few issues this mod has, mainly due to visual language and kind of showing the player what needs to be done. There's a lot of things that are needlessly hidden, which just end up being very, very frustrating to the player. Now, a lot of these rooms that we've seen in part 1 and that we're seeing now in part 2, the general kind of problem is that they're all basically the same. You enter a room and you're just looking for a hole to get out of it. There's no real kind of deviation from that. I mean, this room could be the same as any other room we've just had. It's a case of you have to move a prop to find a way out, and it just gets very, very samey very quickly. There's no kind of interesting gameplay in any of these rooms. This prop looks a bit fishy. And voila. Another problem is that there's lots of doors in all these rooms and corridors, and you know, 3/4 of them are locked. Or 3/4 of them don't even have like a door sound when you press them, it's just a door texture. That really, really hurts the immersion factor. The map does have some nice touches though. So what we just saw there, you knock the prop out of the way to get out of the vent, and a head crab jumps at you as you do that. That's some really nice timing there. So this large area that we're about to get into is another one of the kind of non-linear areas in the map, of which there really needed to be more. It's the strongest area of the maps, where you have these large open spaces and you kind of get to choose where you want to go. Unfortunately, even this area here suffers from a few problems, which we can talk about when we get there. These interior spaces actually look quite nice. It's just a shame there's nothing really here to do. And again, we have more unopenable doors, which is a bit of a FPS cliche. So here we are. This area is actually really, really huge, and I love the fact that it's enclosed by all these buildings. You have all different height variations on the roofs. You've got the sunlight just peeking over the top of the buildings there in the distance. It's actually quite a nice looking area. And again, you have that feeling that you can explore around this area, go inside a few of these buildings. It would have been really nice if you could go inside all the buildings and have a look around in there. Even if there was nothing really in there, aside from some supplies or something. It would just really, really help bring this area to life a bit. And most of these buildings are just, you know, just kind of blocks with building textures on. You can go into a couple of them, but not very many, unfortunately. Now again, the gameplay here is finding a button to unlock a door on the wall. And yet again, we have the same problems where the door just isn't signposted at all. It's actually one of the doors along this wall here that you can try and open it, but it plays a locked sound, and that's the only kind of feedback you get, that this is actually a door that you can open. It's not really picked out in the environment at all. There's no lighting near it or anything like that, and yet it's a critical progression route. So we're going to skip forwards a little bit here because I got really, really lost in this area after a while, and you're going to see why in just a moment. So there's this very, very dark area of the wall here, and it's actually hiding a critical ladder that you need to find in order to progress. You'll see it in a moment when I turn back around. So you can see it's kind of obvious that there's a room here that you should go into. There's the door I was talking about, where it's not really picked out very well in the environment. So that is the door that opens once you find the button in this area. But that took me a hell of a long time to find, because the ladder you need to find to get to the button is just hidden in pitch darkness. So you see here, I just completely stumbled upon it by accident. This is after walking through this area like 3 or 4 times doing loops. And I rage. So you notice if I turn my torch off, you just can't see the ladder at all. You would only really notice it if you catch the top of it kind of silhouetting against the sky. Oh, it's so annoying, because just a simple light there shining down on it from above would have solved everything in this area. It's a real shame that's kind of hidden there. Took me way too long to find. So again, we've got some more corridors here, and again, all these doors on the sides, they're just kind of door textures. If you use them, there's no kind of feedback sound or anything like that. One of the great things about Half-Life 2 is that all the locked doors tend to have those combine door locks on them, which is just a great kind of in-lore way of doing things. Rather than just having an unopenable door, they've all got these combined door locks on, so there's some feedback there as to why you can't open this door. Even though overuse of that can feel bad as well, but it's just a nice way of doing things rather than just an unopenable door with absolutely zero feedback as to why. So we hit the button in there. No. And again, because it's not attached to this door in any way through any kind of visual or audio means, the player's just kind of left to find that door by themselves, and that could be really annoying as well if I hadn't spotted that door before finding the button. Now this is the corridor I was talking about earlier, where it just feels like an extreme copy-paste job. So there's a half a zombie there. And notice the regularity that you see them when we start walking down the corridor. It's a real shame. It just feels really, really bad. So we can come back into this area. This door's actually locked at first. You have to unlock it from the other side. So I'm actually going to speed up this footage here because this corridor is insane. It's like every 1,000 units there's a zombie, and they're all exactly, you know, the disembodied zombie. Really, really strange decision to do that. Again, here I'm not really too keen on using the poison zombies by themselves because they're not actually dangerous like that. I think most players know this by now, but as a designer you really shouldn't be using enemy in an impotent state like that. You should always combine the poison head crabs with something else that's actually dangerous to the player. They're really great at spicing up an already existing battle. You can kind of throw in a poison head crab and that sound will just get players' attention instantly. When you just kind of use them by themselves like that, they're not particularly effective. So we've got yet another environment type here. You kind of emerge into this giant street. And at first I quite like this area. It feels really, really huge. You've got this giant kind of motorway going down the centre. Now, while you're taking in the kind of grand view, it actually looks quite nice, but the actual buildings themselves are actually very, very simple. I think the lighting here is a bit flat as well. It would have been nice to have some more interesting shadows coming in over the top of the buildings. That's a great way to add a lot of detail to a very open scene like this, is just to create some interesting shadows with the sunlight. But I think the angle's a little bit too slight here. You don't really get any light pouring in. I think the buildings themselves are quite nice. They just need a little bit more detail, I think, like some various bits and bobs sticking out, like windowsills, you know, like shop fronts and things like that. And the other issue is that you've got this huge open environment with not a lot of cover. There's the occasional car here and there. But again, you're fighting combined soldiers, so you really want a lot more cover than this. As soon as soldiers appear, you're kind of running towards the nearest car and staying there until they're all dead. And again, this area suffers unfortunately from the same issue that I've already discussed in the previous area, is that the critical progression path is actually hidden, in this case hidden in plain sight, because you'll notice there's a lot of doors on these shops here. And all of them but one are unopenable. And the one that is openable looks exactly the same as all the others. You see, unfortunately it's a terrible decision, because I spent about, I don't know, 20 minutes running around this area just trying to find this one door that would open. I didn't even know there was a door that would open, so it was just the last thing to try. I'm going to spare you guys all of that by cutting the footage, but yeah. Generally, if you've kind of got a giant street scene like this, but there's only like one or two areas that you can actually go into. That was a terrible grenade. Yeah, you really want to make the area look kind of special, because like all the shop fronts here, they all look the same. Nothing really stands out and grabs the player's attention to say, come over here and try this door, it may open. Everything looks the same. There's lots of different ways you can do this. You can put bars across the door, which a player can knock down with their crowbar. You know, you can put broken windows in that the player can walk through. Just anything to give some visual clue as to where to go or what to do. Because yeah, there's absolutely nothing standing out in this scene for the player to grab hold of and say, okay, that's what I need to do. So here's the door that opens. Another rage moment. Yeah, I mean, even just having a light above the door and no lights above any of the other doors would have helped. Just to single it out as being important. And again, the button you have to press in here in order to progress doesn't make a lot of sense, because what it does is it blows up a car outside, which reveals a drain. Now why can't the player just push the car out of the way with the gravity gun and go to the drain directly? It just feels extremely gamey. The one thing I did like here is that because the player has no idea what the explosion was or what it did, there's a bit of fire in the car to kind of draw the player's attention over to it, which is good. Again, that's the thing I'm trying to promote here, is you've got to the player doesn't see something happening, then they need to be shown after they get there what happened. Just having a little bit of fire in the car that kind of draws the player over there. But yeah, it still doesn't make a lot of sense in the grand scheme of things, unfortunately. And you guessed it, we've got another stupidly long vent. You really want to avoid putting long vents like that in your map. It's really bad. So this here is kind of interesting, and I played it completely incorrectly on my first try. So you've got the combined sniper in the window, and it never occurred to me to actually go to the sniper and throw a grenade in the window. I figured the gameplay here was run to the end of the street and avoid the sniper shots. And I don't think I ever really took a really good look at where the sniper was. I figured he was higher up and I wouldn't be able to get a grenade in there, but It just looked like there was absolutely no cover going up to the sniper window, so I thought I wouldn't be able to get there without dying or something. Another thing is that there's actually a grenade box hidden down that dark alleyway to the side there. And I think if that had been out in the open air here, or somewhere where you can see it from that safe area that you start this area in, it probably would have given a hint to the player that you actually meant to kill the sniper with a grenade before you progress here, because as you're about to see, things get a little bit nuts with a sniper attacking you with what's about to happen. So it's kind of funny, at this distance the sniper's bullet takes a while to get to you, so you can actually just kind of speed tank him and dodge around all over the place. So I actually felt like I was doing the right thing, which is strange. Because you can just kind of sidestep from side to side and it'll never hit you. Not at this distance. So yeah, this is when it kind of dawned on me that perhaps I played this area a little bit wrong. So I'm kind of constantly moving to avoid the sniper while trying to take out a gunship. And the only real cover from the gunship is standing right here. Now the gunship itself, even just ignoring the sniper for a moment, the gunship here has a couple of issues by itself. Number one is that the skybox isn't really big enough to support the kind of arcs you need to get on the launcher. So if you arc your rocket over these buildings, it will just disappear. It will hit the skybox brush and just disappear. So obviously I died after a while there. So this is my second attempt, and I figured that I'm going to try and take out this sniper first. Which works great. But yeah, I have no idea why that didn't really occur to me. So yeah, let's try this again. So, with a gunship fight, you really want to make sure you've got an absolutely huge skybox area above the player so that their rockets don't just disappear into thin air, because that is really, really frustrating. That's something you want to avoid. There's also a little bit of an issue with the gunship's pathing here. He can get really, really far away. And it can be a real chore to actually fight him, because he kind of stays at the very end of this corridor here. And you just end up kind of aiming a rocket at a couple of pixels in the distance. It can get a little bit annoying. Notice there another rocket just hits the skybox brushes and disappears. Finally take him out. I think an issue with this area, just going back to the sniper for a moment, is that I kind of like it when a sniper is shown to you in a map and it's kind of a real present threat and you have to deal with it before proceeding. For instance, the first time you see the combined snipers in Half-Life 2, they're in windows above the train tracks. And if you don't kill them, they will just kill you before you get a chance to proceed. Whereas here in this area, you can kind of almost ignore the sniper and just kind of run away from him. You don't really have to deal with it. And then of course that ends up being a real problem when the gunship appears and you've still got a sniper taking shots at you whenever you pop out of cover. I'm kind of thinking that perhaps there's a fence or a gate or something that it takes a while to get over, so that it's more clear that you have to kill the sniper first before you can get past this obstacle that takes perhaps a few jumps or something. Now the mod kind of shifts gear again. The final couple of minutes here is it kind of switches into a kind of horror mode, This is where I'm kind of getting the idea that I mentioned in part 1, where it feels like a lot of different maps kind of jumbled together. Because this is a completely new thing, and it really doesn't work because there's absolutely no context for it. And that's what I think horror in games really needs, is a lot of context. It's really easy to just create a bunch of rooms here and there's like blood everywhere, and there's some really cliched stuff coming up in a minute involving of course the baby doll model from Half-Life 2. Gotta have that in your horror mod, right? Yeah. But yeah, I think the player relating to the place they're in or the people they're interacting with is really powerful if you're creating a horror mod. The trouble with this mod is that you've basically been walking through a maze the whole time, and there's been very little thought put into the actual story of the place you're in. It literally is a maze that you've been running around in. That just happens to be textured with building walls and things like that. So the player can't relate to anything. And then when you switch it into a horror mode like this, it just really doesn't work, because the player just doesn't care about any of it. Here's the baby doll room, which we've seen 4,000 times in other mods. I mean, all this stuff just happens without any kind of rhyme or reason. It's just walk into a room, something that's supposed to be scary happens, and then you move to the next room, and it never really pans out or escalates into anything larger. The only part I really did like about this horror part at the end is the actual very end, which we're coming up to in a moment. It's actually kind of well done. Here we are. So I saw the car headlamps there, and I was kind of in two minds, like, shall I run towards it or shall I try and get out of here before it runs up here and kills me? But then I just thought, nah, screw it. And that is the end.
Is it really that time again?
So yeah, and it sounds like I've been really negative about this mod all the way through, but it does have some interesting ideas in it, but it's just, like I mentioned at the very beginning of part 1, it's just the execution's kind of all wrong. I really like the idea of the non-linear areas with lots of different buildings you can enter, but it's never really expanded upon. There's never really any need for that, because there's only one way out of that area anyway. It's just kind of superfluous, these buildings. They never actually do anything. There's nothing really in them. Half of them are just kind of boxes with no actual interior at all, which is a real shame. And there's a lot of issues with things like actually showing critical paths to the player. For instance, that ladder hidden in darkness. In the very first area of the mod, there was that just hole in the top of that building, which isn't really picked out at all. And the players just kind of end up, moving around for ages trying to find the way to proceed, which just ends in rage quits 90% of the time, which is what you want to avoid. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comments, guys. More videos coming soon.